Hello, Kako. Welcome back to another Mo'olelo Monday. So I'm currently sitting in the theater. All by myself. This is the Aloha Theater, located on top of the Norwegian cruise line. I was trying to find someplace quiet to record that wasn't inside the cabin, so this is the best place I could get that wasn't too busy with people passing. And it's pretty nice. It's quiet in here. I don't have anything running, no shows, no nothing, so I have a moment to speak. And I guess one of the things that inspired this Mo'olelo Monday is pets. Yeah, I didn't really feel like or think that animals had any kind of like soul. It's kind of like growing up when I was younger. I never really thought like birds or lizards or frogs and things like that had the same kind of spirit or soul that we as people have. It's interesting that there are animals that come back in a spiritual way after they've passed, after they've gone. And I'm not sure, there's other kinds of stuff that, of course, I ponder, and we'll find all these answers to all these questions once we've gone where we need to go after this life. But you have all these stories about animals, protecting animals that come back and stay with their owners, like even the elders, when they are passing and stuff, they come back and they comfort their masters before they pass on. And whether or not that is the spirit of that animal that you owned, or if it's just a projection from the mana within you, or it's an angel coming by to comfort you in a way that you feel the most loved or respected. It's interesting topic. So what I wanted to do today was I wanted to share a few stories about the pets that I've had and the interactions that we shared after their passing. So one of the reasons why this particular Mo'olelo is inspired was because like I said, we're currently on a cruise ship, and we're doing an around the island hop on hop off kind of thing. And our last stop was on the island of Kauai. And on Kauai, we have this place that we like to go to. It's called Tropicats. And so I'll show footage inside this video. I'm not sure if I'm going to put this in the beginning or if I have the video playing while I'm talking. But my family, my wife and my two girls, we all love cats. That's our go-to animal when it comes to pets. But yeah, so growing up, the kinds of animals that we would get were always, like strays, dogs that weren't, no longer had a home, or cats that came by the house and would stop in looking for food, and we just adopt them, like even the one bird that we had, her name was Coco. Cockatiel. Even that bird was pulled off the street. It was funny because when she first came home, the story was that I guess mom and dad had seen the bird on the side of the road or something, and my dad went to go and fetch it because it's a unique bird, right? Cockatiels are not known for being in Hawaii, and so when my dad went to grab it, the darn bird just like took a chunk out of his thumb when he grabbed it, it just bit him. But that was the one and only time that the bird actually was vicious, and it was because it was protecting itself. It didn't know if it was going to get eaten by this large creature, right? So it came home with us and lived with us and became part of the family. And yeah, it was interesting because for us growing up, we've always had dogs and cats, and so having a bird was a little bit more unique. Um, couldn't really play with it like you could a dog or a cat. You couldn't really pet it. I mean, you could scratch it. This little thing, you could scratch it with your little fingers, thumb and finger. But and it had a good life. I think it had a very good life. But yeah, yeah, cute little thing. Didn't really have after it passed away. Didn't really have any inexplicable tales about that particular pet. I mean, not like it came back and you could hear fluttering going past your ear, or you hear its calls. You know what I mean? Um, Nothing like that. Mostly it happened with our cat pets. So let's see. I'm gonna start with my sister's cat, my sister Jocelyn. So she had a cat named Sam, and this cat was actually caught a ride on a truck when it was a kitten. Caught a ride on a truck from, I can't remember, Haula or whatever, but it came a long ways down to the east side in Kailua, where my sister was working at Safeway, and I guess they heard meowing coming from the car, and the guy found the cat, and so my sister brought it home. Anyway, that was my older sister. My older sister brought the cat home, and then gifted it to my my sister, who's right above me. And I used to love that cat. I mean, we used to hang out, and I used to play with him, and he was an indoor outdoor cat. So wherever we were, man, the brother would just come around and chill, and he was just a chillest. He was like the coolest cat, because normally they kind of like most of the cats that we had, the feral ones anyway, the strays, were pretty wired. Yeah, they're kind of like jumping all over the place and playing all over the place. And this one was just like a cruise cat, man. It was more like my speed. So I grew a really strong liking to this cat. And so when my wife and I, when we got married, because he had been with us from when he was a really baby, and he was getting up there in age. But when my wife and I finally got married, and we moved up to town away from Wamanalo, we would visit every so often. We'd go on the visit on the weekends. We'd go home, and I'd see him and stuff, and give him a scratch or whatever. But I remember for a while, it had been a while since traveling back home, and let's see. I remember having this dream. I had a dream, and in my dream, I could hear, like, I woke up from my bed where I was laying at the time. I heard meowing, and it was really weird because this cat, his name was Sam, and this cat had a particular meow. It was a very high pitched meow, like a squeak, like a mousy squeak. Yeah. And so when I heard him mewing, I was like, "Hey, I know that call, right?" So I stood up, I looked out my window, and inside the condo we were living, it was 2 stories. So I looked down, and of course, let's see. So there was a 2-story condo, and the base of our home, there was another home underneath it. So it was like 3 stories. Anyway, there was this walkway, and then across from the walkway, I mean the path, cement path on the ground, there was another building across the way, exactly the same. It was like just reverse, right, mirror, and there was another walkway facing us, right? So there was this mewing, and I get up off the bed, I open my window, I look down, and there I see, just Sam. He's just walking on the neighbor's cement pathway, and so I was like, my heart kind of raced, because I was like, oh my goodness, my boy is outside chilling. So I was like, I want to grab him, right? So I called out to him. I said, "Hey, Sam." And so he looked up towards the window where I was calling him from, here, and he started walking. And when he was walking, he went through the railings, and he slipped down, and he fell on top of the cement walkway on the bottom ground level. And so I ran down the steps, ran around the stairs outside, came around, and I seen him laying on top of the cement, and it broke my heart because he was in pain, and he was just kind of lying there with his eyes half masked, right? Real pathetic, right? Pathetic dream. My cat got hurt, and so I grabbed him, I pulled him up on my lap, and I was holding him, and I shed a tear because it was heartbreaking for me to see him in that kind of way, my childhood cat just kind of in that position of dying, right? So I woke up, I had tears in my eyes for real. When you cry in your dreams, you cry in real life, right? So I was wiping my face, and so my wife was looking at me. She goes, "Honey, you all right?" I said, "Nah, I just had a bad dream." And so she's like, "Oh, so what was it about?" And I explained it to her. I says, "Oh, Sam came to visit us here at this house, and he fell off the second floor, and he died in my arms." And so she's like, "Oh no." So she tells me, she goes, "Okay, you know what we should do? Maybe we should go home this weekend and go visit him." I said, "Oh, that's a good idea." I was excited. And I think that was on a Wednesday. Like, it was in the middle of the week, so we're still working. Um, so on Saturday, we drove on down to Wamalo to go visit the cat, of all things, right? Not visit my sisters or my dad. I'm just go visit my cat. And when I got there, he wasn't around. And usually, this cat is funny. So usually we have these water heaters outside our house, and usually he'll be sleeping up on the water heater because it's warm. And when I pull into the garage, he'll like stand up on the water heater, and he'll do this big arc of his back to stretch, and then he'll just kind of like really slowly, like his hands will slowly go down the water heater until he's comfortable, and then he'll just jump down from that 6 foot drop. And then, of course, when you get out of the car, he'll be rubbing up against your legs and whatnot. So when we get to the house, absolutely nowhere to be found. And I was like, "Oh, it's kind of weird that, because normally he greets us when we come home." And he wasn't doing that. So I said, "Oh, maybe he's in the house, right?" So we're moving around, grabbing our stuff from the vehicle. Anyway, my older sister, the one that found the cat inside the guy's car, she comes out of the house, and she's like, "Hey, hi, how's it going?" And I was like, "Oh, good. We just came to visit Sam." And she goes, "Oh, you know what? I think he had gotten into something bad. Like, I don't know if he was drinking radiator fluid or something, but he stopped by earlier, and he didn't look good. He looked really sick. And the last time I see him was just a few days ago, which was Wednesday, the day that I had the dream of the boy." And so I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what?" And so we never seen him again after that dream, and never did see him in the physical sense. After I had that dream of him dying in my arms, and it just kind of broke my heart because, here's this person, this being that you grew up. Well, I grew up thinking that like animals don't have any kind of soul or any kind of spirit or anything to them. They're just animals here for us to, manipulate and eat and whatever we want to do with them, right? So saith the church I was brought up in. And here's this thing. It finds its way to me in town, and it never had been to where I had lived before. It found me through my dream, and it communicated with me to tell me that it was no longer here on the earth. And I just thought that was so amazing. It wanted to come and say goodbye, and I thought that was so awesome, and something that I never really truly understood. I mean, like, if animals and stuff are lesser creatures and they don't really have that kind of spirit, then why did this happen? Or why did it feel the need to come and visit one last time? Sounds like I don't think there's a show, but sounds like people are coming around. So why did it feel like there was a need to come by? And so that was very interesting. Now, that wasn't the last time I seen him. Like I said, the previous time I visited, it was the last time I seen him physically. And then, of course, when he came in my dream, he said goodbye. But he still lingered at the house. And so, like I was saying, when we pull into the garage, when we come home, the little guy would stretch, no matter what time of day it was, daytime, nighttime, whatever. He would do that arcing of his back, he'd stretch, and then he'd paw his way down to the floor to greet us. And so what ended up happening was we'd gone to church one evening. I believe it must have been Saturday night mass. I don't think it was a special mass. Anyway, so we were returning from church, and like back when I was working at the Daiei, back in the day, when I used to pull into the garage and see the cat sitting on the water heater or sleeping on the water heater, the same thing happened when we came home from church one night after he had passed, or after he had disappeared. I mean, this was like weeks later. We hadn't seen him, so we already knew that he had passed. But basically what happened was we were pulling into the garage, And as the headlights were swooping towards the water heaters, I see the shadow on the top of the water heater, just kind of like, it was a cat, the shape of a cat. It stretches, it arcs its back in the same exact manner, same exact timing, same size, everything of our family cat Sam. And so I was looking at that and I was like, is that a different cat sleeping up in the water heater now that Sam is gone? A new cat has taken his place. And so I'm looking at it, I said, that looks a lot like Sam, but it's just a shadow. Yeah, it's just a silhouette of this kitty. And I'm like, whoa, that's kind of trippy. Look at this cat. And it stretched, it reached its paws down from the water heater, and when it jumped down, as its silhouette, as its shadow fell into the beam of light, as soon as it hit the light, it disappeared. The cat, the shadow, whatever it was, fully disappeared. And I was like, what? Like, as soon as it hit the beams of the headlights, it just vanished. It didn't even, the body didn't even continue through the light. As soon as the shadow hit the light, it dissipated, just gone. And I was like, wow. So that was a visitation by Sam. And it's not like at that moment I was thinking about the cat. It's not like at that moment I was yearning for him. It was just a simple act of driving in, like coming home from work. That same motion triggered this interaction in the environment or something, right? Or perhaps as a way to comfort us or greet us coming home and to tell us that he's still around, just not physically. He goes and does his little stretch and he jumps off the water heater. So I thought that was amazing. So yeah, that was my second story about the pets. So I'm not sure about how much, like, see, and I know this can get into some really tricky talk. Like, some people's like, wow, what's so concerning about that? Everybody should know this, and everybody should believe this. But no, that's not the thing. It's like, our beliefs are our beliefs. And if you have the mindset where everyone should believe this and everyone should know this and everyone should accept this, then you're kind of missing the point of what life is supposed to be. Life is supposed to be about, like, experiences, right? And enjoying where you're at, doing what you like doing. And a lot of people waste their times forcing others to believe what they want, what they understand to be true. And in a way, like when you're learning in school and stuff, you go to a teacher and they teach you, science and math and language. Like, that's all fine and well, that's all sciences, right? Arts and whatnot. It's studies that are consistent, yeah. But when you're coming to, like, spirituality and stuff, and these places that are having wars with each other because they don't believe in something that we don't truly comprehend yet, because we are not of a spiritual sense. We are mostly physical, right? To force other people to believe in your beliefs, it's madness. Just let people believe what they want to believe. Let people go, right? Let them understand something or comprehend something in their life that makes sense to them. Maybe later there's going to be more information that's forthcoming that'll help us, guide us into, like, a place that makes more sense, right? Or has a more all-encompassing pull or draw that everyone can believe in that kind of belief. But as it stands, your religion and your community and the things that you do at work and whatnot should inspire others to grow and to help each other, and of course to live your life that you want to live in a nice way, in a wholesome way. But yeah, I don't mean to get off into a tangent. It's just that, these are the kinds of things that come to my mind. These animals are supposed to be these simplistic things that, like I said, growing up, it's like they're here for what we want them to be. But if you're into cats and you like cats as much as me and my family do, if you look at a cat, they don't really give a shit. They don't give a shit about you. They really don't. If you're providing them a soft, warm place to lay and some food to eat, then they'll hang around you. But they've got their own agenda. They've got their own things that they got going on in their brain, right? And if these beasts, if these creatures don't want to be around you, they ain't gonna come. They won't. They'll just stay in the tree. They'll just hide in the hole. They'll just sit off in the distance, sit on the waves. They won't come. That if you're not providing what they want, then maybe somebody has that feeling of love inside their heart, and they open their heart to a particular animal. The animal needs that in their life. They'll come to you and be with you for that time. And so takes me to the second story. So another cat. So for my dog viewers and whatnot, I'm sorry, this is another cat story. Anyway, we come home from this this event from the school called Halloween Hustle, right? And wow, these workers over here yapping in the back, making all this noise. Anyway, we come home from this event called Halloween Hustle, and it was for, of course, Halloween, but it wasn't on Halloween. It was slightly before, like a week before Halloween. And when we get home to, no, it's a visitor. Sorry. Anyway, so as we come home from the event, I'm unloading the car, I'm getting the kids back in and whatnot, and making everything nice, and my wife is over there picking things up from inside the car as well. And as she's out there, I think she was grabbing her bag and stuff from the front seat, she feels something brush up against her leg, and it freaks her out. And so when she moves away, she looks down at the car. There's this little black and white tuxedo cat, and it's a kitten. She's a tiny little kitten, and the thing is, like, it's looking for something, and it found it in my wife. And so she came back in the house to come get me. And when I came back outside, I see that. Well, when I came out towards the front door, I see this small kitten standing in front of our screen door, just staring into the house, like it was yearning to be inside the place. And so I was like, oh my goodness. So cutest little thing. You're just sitting there, and my wife, as sweet as she is, she's like, what do we do? I mean, this kitten's out here all by himself, and he just came rubbing up against me, scared the bejesus out of me. So I was like, well, just grab him. And so she's like, should I? So she was kind of iffy of whether or not she should. And so I ended up grabbing the cat, and I brought it into the house and showed the kids, and the kids got excited. They're like, oh my gosh, it's a kitten. They're all, yay. Cat didn't squirm, didn't get scared, nothing. Put him on the ground inside the room, in the family room, and he was a mess. He was like covered in dirt. He didn't look like he was cleaning himself well. He was slightly long-haired, so of course those kinds of cats take a little bit more grooming, right? But we have this small restroom right next to the family room, and so I put him inside there just for the night. Just to kind of keep him from scratching things up or going someplace and getting hurt. So we kind of put him inside the bathroom, and I shut the door. As soon as I did, man, he started crying. And I was like, I don't think he's gonna like it in there. So I said, you know what, we'll keep him in our bedroom. So took the cat out of the bathroom, put him inside our bedroom, set up a little box, put one of my wife's t-shirts inside the box so he'd feel comfortable, because she's the first person that he came into contact with, and put him in the box. And that sucker, like, I was waking up in the middle of the night just to kind of check on him. That sucker stayed up all night, standing inside that box, not even laying down, standing up, like he was just sitting, just looking at us as we slept. And he was just sitting there the whole night watching us. And I just thought that was like so goofy. But yeah, we named him Hoppa because he was half black and half white, and he was our first cat, our family's first cat. And so he bonded with the girls, and he was just all in love, man. He just really loved my two girls, and he was the cutest thing. But what happened was he had gotten sick. There's really nothing we could do, and he was spending his last couple of weeks like hurt inside, and basically we were there. for his very last moments. Now, this cat had a lot of anxieties. Like, you could see that he had these issues, and the reason why he liked being with my family is because we're very calm, we're very chill. We didn't really bother anybody, and we didn't make loud noises. So he loved being with us. Now, the thing was, as as time went on, my father-in-law, my wife's dad, came to stay with us, and while he was there, I guess he had this thing where he disliked cats, and so he would do this whenever Hoppa would come into the living room or anything like that near the guy, would like take his walker and try to hit him, and so of course he'd have to slink away, and he was like stressing out and whatnot over that. But yeah, the guy, I guess, didn't like cats, didn't like felines, and he just had an issue with Hoppa. And Hoppa never bothered him and scratched nobody unless he was, scared. Like if you're holding him and he got scared, like a firework or something went off, which happens a lot during New Year's at our place. But he was never intentionally mean to anything or anyone. And so yeah, this guy just kept going, kept going, and he just kept pushing the cat. Anyway, so Hoppa got sick, and we were in. He was spending a lot of time in my sister's bedroom because cats don't like to. So what I hear is cats don't like to die around their family because they don't want to attract predators and they don't want their families to get hurt. So that's what the belief is, right? The scientific belief. Who knows what it is? Maybe they go through something else. But anyway, he was incapacitated. He couldn't really move, and he was laying on top of the floor in my sister's room. So my daughters were like, they were a mess. They were crying and they were sad and they were just looking at us and says, "Oh, poor Hoppa," you know what I mean? And so we sat in there for his last few breaths, and he was at the base of my daughter's knees, and he was just kind of taking shallow breaths, trying to, make his way to the next world. And it was heartbreaking because the moment he took his last breath, my daughters really started to feel the impact of losing a loved one. And so because that was the first time I had ever experienced, because we had a bunch of cats growing up, and they'd always run off and never return because that was their moment where they just, they're done, right? Their lives are over. But basically, this was the first time I've actually experienced the passing of, not just the pet but our cat. And so it was kind of like a moment of like, is he just kind of like sleeping? So I placed him into this container, this rectangular container, and I placed him inside the living room to sit. And he just, by some miraculous thing, right? Get up and it's like, I am fine, right? No, he spent the whole night, just sitting there. He didn't move, and it's okay. So he's gone. He's passed. So I made a burial, put the baby inside the ground, covered him up, made a little headstone, and we continued, right? And it was funny because one night I couldn't sleep. I woke up really early in the morning, so and it was hot or something. So I left my bedroom, went into the living room, and I laid down on the couch. And I had the fan on me and everything. I was just trying to get some rest. I couldn't really sleep, and it was so funny. The darndest thing happened. So we had this collar around Hoppa's neck, and it had a little bell. And after he had passed away, I gave the bell, the collar, to my older daughter, and she put the collar around her backpack so that she'd have a piece of Hoppa with her when she'd go to and from school. Anyway, the collar itself, and actually the bell, I guess when she puts the backpack down and the book smashed it, the bell actually got cinched. So the rattler on the inside, the little ball on the inside of the bell, wasn't rattling anymore. It was like pinched inside like a seed, and so it wasn't really ringing. But anyway, getting back to where I was sleeping on the couch. I was trying to fall asleep on the couch, and in the dark, this must have been, let's say 2 a.m. or something like that. As I'm laying there, I hear like Hoppa jumping off the table inside our living room area, because you hear that bell. The bells have a particular sound anyway. The only sound inside the entire house that sounds like that would be his bell. So it sounds like he jumps down from this table, and and then I hear ting 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 ting, and this thing, audibly I can hear it running from where the table was around me into the kitchen. So I'm like, I sit up and I look into the kitchen and I hear this bell ding, 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 going down through the kitchen, taking the corner into the hallway. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what the heck is happening? So I just thought it was funny. This little bell noise is going through the kitchen into the hallway, and I was like, oh, he must be going to visit the girls, because down that hallway after the kitchen, it was my girls' room, and my father-in-law was staying in one of those rooms too. And so it was funny. It wasn't maybe 5 minutes later after I heard the bell, I was like leaning back again. I hear my father-in-law make this make this kind of noise, right? And I was like, what the heck? But he suffers from PTSD, from the war, from the Vietnam War. He sometimes has these night terrors, and he'll be like, he'll get these moments of like terror. And so I thought that's just what he was going through. Anyway, the next day, after everyone's awake, I share a story on the way to take the girls to school. It says, "Oh, Papa came and visited us last night," and so my girls are excited. Like, really? What happened? And I says, "Well, Daddy was inside the living room because I couldn't sleep, and I heard him jump off the table because his little bell was ringing, and he went running around me, and he went through the kitchen and off into the. I guess he came to visit you guys because he went down the back hall to your guys' where you were resting." And so like, oh, they're inside. They're like, oh, he came to visit. And of course, my daughter has her little collar on top of her bag, and so she's rubbing it. And I was like, yeah. So it was really nice. Anyway, as the day's going on, my wife tells me, she goes, oh, my dad just texted me. And I said, oh yeah, what happened? He's like, oh, he was just telling me about this bad dream he had this morning. And I said, oh really? I heard him. I overheard him this morning when I was in the living room. I heard him kind of like, ah. So I thought he was going through his his night terrors. And he goes, no, it was a different kind of dream. And she says, like, yeah, he wrote this whole thing out on top of text, and said that as he was sleeping, he had this dream that he was laying on the ground, and he was at the base of my daughter's knees, and he was looking up at them, and they were crying, and he said it felt as if he was dying. And I'm like, that freaking cat got his revenge. And the reason why I say that is because all this time that after he had moved in, my father-in-law moved in, he tormented that cat. He was trying to hit his water bottle at the cat. He tried to stick it with the walker and the cane and stuff like that. He was trying to hit the cat every time it came by, and he was trying to hit it. And that sucking cat, after he had passed away, snuck into my father-in-law's room and gave him the last moments of his life in a dream. He had the dream of how things were set up when my cat passed away. He experienced my cat's passing, and I was like, that is freaking insane, And how does that happen, right? For me, at least, I had an emotional bond with Sam, which is what could have inspired me having this mirage appear in the garage, right? Or having this dream about my boy coming to visit me, right? I was just missing him. These are things that could be triggered in your brain, right? Scientifically, right? But here's my father-in-law, who didn't give a shit about this cat. He couldn't care less. He wanted to see the cat dead, if anything, right? He wasn't there when the cat died. He didn't experience or go through any of this stuff. He didn't care. When we said that Hoppo had passed away, he was like, oh, okay, whatever, right? It didn't affect him in any way. And after this time had passed, it wasn't immediately, but after this time had passed, after Hoppo passed away, and he finally came back to me in that audible moment where I could hear his bell ringing as he went into the back rooms, he goes over to this guy who is irritating him in life and gives him the worst moment of his life, which was when he passed away in a dream. And so Dad, said that when he woke up, he was like in tears, he was crying, he was like upset about the whole ordeal, of him having this dream of dying while he was on top of the lap of my daughters, and they were just looking down at him weeping, and it made him feel something. And I just thought that was the funniest experience. But yeah, I mean, so like um, he could have come to any one of my girls to visit, like Sam had come to me to visit, to say goodbye, but instead he opted to go to the person that was tormented him in life and made him feel something, made him feel differently. And I guess we were okay with it. I mean, I never really liked the fact that dad would be, so violent to this cat that wouldn't bother anybody. He wasn't even intrusive. He didn't like lay on the dinner table. He wouldn't be up on the counters trying to eat stuff. He wouldn't open up drawers or anything like that or scratch the curtains. He was a very, very calm cat. He was a very not like I said before. Sam was a chill cat. This was a chill cat. And so, yeah, um, interesting. I mean, not really exactly sure, um, why those particular visitations happened, like what brought them on, but whether it was through, us as people missing our pets, or us as people having a fear that bring these types of manifestations up. But I mean, to me, honestly, in those two different, very different instances of my cats passing away and then coming back, one coming back to remind me that they're still here, that they still, are doing the same things in the afterlife as they're doing in real life, to say goodbye and even to like take revenge on somebody that was mean to them throughout their life, their existence. It's very interesting. But that wasn't the last time Hoppa stopped by either. Sometimes he would come up on my bed and he would nip at me to wake me up to feed him. And it was funny because he loved food just like me. He loved food. And so every time he'd come up on the bed to wake me up to feed him, it was getting earlier and earlier. Now we get up at 5:30 to get ready for work. And so when we're done getting ready for work, like 5:45, 6 o'clock, I go ahead and, pour out some food for him and then he'd eat. Every morning we'd feed him. And he was nipping at me earlier and earlier until it was like 4 o'clock in the morning. I said, brother, this is way too early for you to eat, man. I ain't feeding you. So he kept nipping. I said, nope. Throw my blanket over me so he couldn't get any bites out of me. And he goes, he jumps onto my wife and he starts nipping at her. And she's like, stop it, Hoppa. And so she'd get up and she'd go and feed the baby. And I was like, this is too funny. And I said, no, you got to ignore him. You have to let him. He says, yeah, but he's biting me. I says, no, he's only nipping at you. Just put your blanket on and he'll leave you alone. And so it was just too funny. That cat was the trip. But yeah, I mean, even on special like tours and investigations that we do out, you know, in the wild and stuff. I remember going up to Nu'uanu and experiencing a canine type of manifestations. Dog, you can smell the wet dog smell. You can hear the panting and the footsteps going through the leaves. Walking around your legs. You can as it's moving around. And you can't really explain it because there ain't no dogs up in Nu'uanu, you know what I mean? You look around, it's like, there's nothing around us. So what's making that noise? What's walking around us? And what smells like a wet dog, Can't really explain it. But yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of times we went up to Nu'uanu and there have been activities of dogs. And so how does that come about, right? Like, I'm a cat person. I mean, nothing against dogs, but I think that they stink. I think that they're loud and obnoxious. I think they're slobbery, and I don't like that. I prefer cats because they're quiet, they're clean, and they can take care of themselves. They're more independent, right? Um, and so for like me and dogs, I don't get along with that kind of thing. But anyway, long story short, this dog comes around and is bothering our group. And the few times that we went up to Nu'uanu, we'd have a dog appear, right? And so later on, when we were doing more of these tours and more of these investigations out there, we find out that there's a particular dog spirit that does inhabit the area, Kaupe, and an Alohe, or due to a story from one of the tour guides, Wahoo Ghost tour guides, was telling the story about Inugami, right? Which is like a Japanese dog spirit. So I was like, okay, interesting. So yeah, You would think that if we were the ones causing this manifestation or these things to happen, then mine would be a cat up in Nuuanu. But no, it ended up being a dog. And there's stories about the dog being on the road, dogs being in the forest on top of paths, hiking paths and stuff like that. So, like, that whole idea, the whole concept of animals not having much of a spirit, of, you know what I mean, like an importance of a soul within them. It totally left my brain. And then I started to think even deeper. It's like, okay, so animals have this spirit within them, this life, these decisions that they make to be with the people that they want to be with, to torment the people they want to torment. You know, they have all this capacity to do these things like people. So they themselves must be like people. Now I know some of you guys, or many of you guys, are like, no, no, duh. Where you been all this time, brother? You know, and like I said before, you know, everyone takes their steps at different times. You know, your first steps. Some people take their first steps at 6 months. Some people take their first steps at 1.5 years old. You know, it all depends on when you're ready to travel down that path. And my path was a bit slower when it comes to understanding that animals do indeed have a mana, and they do indeed have a soul that moves them and makes them a part of this world that's a lot deeper than just being here for us to toy with, for us to eat, for us to have as pets, right? There's a bigger reason for them being here. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I think deeper on these kinds of things, and I'm like, well, does it stop there? You know? Because in our culture, the forest has a spirit because it grows from Papa. And Papa is Mother Earth. So she's growing forth these plants, these trees, right? And if she's growing these things from her, these things also will take on a type of life of their own. And then when you find out that science is talking about how plants communicate and how they speak to each other, not in the way we do, you know, because like it's one of the funny things is like people that are vegetarians or vegans or whatever you call them, they're like, oh, you know, they'll look at me and they're like, bro, you'd be much healthier if you stopped eating meat. You should eat vegetables. And I'm like, no, I like to eat meat. I enjoy eating beef. And you can't tell me that I should eat a plant just because it's going to make me healthy. Well, you live longer. It says, who says I want to live longer? Well, do I want to live a life of it being miserable because I can't have my hamburger? Or do I want to live a happy, shorter life? I'm like, put two and two together, right? I'd rather live a happy life than a miserable life, is what it comes down to. Because you don't know if you could get hit by a car. You could be the healthiest thing in the world and get hit by a car. And then what? Right? There's no point in all that struggle and all that trying to make yourself feel a certain way. It's just what you enjoy. And so that's my belief, right? And so this person's yelling at me on the internet saying, oh, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this, stop eating. Because, you know, you're hurting the animals. Is that what it's coming down to? It's just basically hurting the animals. Well, yeah, because, you know, you have to kill, you don't eat anything with a face because, you know, imagine that face before you take a bite of that burger. You know, it's sad, right? And I'm like, well, I don't imagine the face of the animal that I'm eating when I'm eating it. I imagine how tasty the thing tastes in my mouth and how full it's going to make me feel and how satiated I'm going to feel after eating it. Just like they do when they eat their plants. But I'm like thinking to myself now, these plants communicate, these plants move. They don't move like we do, but they move, you know. Some of them stretch out underground. Some, like the banana, continually create more and more oha, right? They just keep popping up with more offshoots of themselves. It's like, so these plants, they have their own way of moving, they have their own way of communicating, so they have their own way of thinking too, right? If they are trying to propagate and continue to survive in a way that they're trained or the way that they're born to do, just like an animal, then plants themselves must also have a kind of spirit or a kind of soul to them that, you know, we just don't understand because we are not like them, right? It's interesting to think about. And in effect, if you think even deeper, and not just animals, not just plants, not just single-celled organism, we're talking about individual elements such as water, such as air, such as fire, and the rocks. right? I mean, now we're getting to cuckoo town, right? People are thinking rocks don't have a soul, but don't they? I mean, they were here way longer than we were. They were what helped to create things that are sustainable, right? Our food grows from these rocks. The animals eat the food that grows from these rocks. The plants grow from these rocks. It's what causes life to occur. So because we don't communicate as a rock, because we don't communicate as the wind, who's to say that these things also don't have a type of spirit? Well, anyway, it's something to ponder. These guys are starting to clean up the theater here. My time in the peace and quiet has already come to its end, and it's time for me to sign off, because those are the stories I wanted to share about the pets that I have. So if you guys have any stories that you want to share about something happening to the pets you had, or just having some kind of animal spirit visit you, you can drop it in the comments and start a conversation with the people that come and view this video. But other than that, I just want to say aloha and a hui ho. Until next time, O'olelo Monday. Mahalo.